Hi, welcome to another craft video from the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library. I'm Cheryl and I'm in charge of the craft kits at the main library. And today's video is to accompany a kit that we'll be giving out starting May 15th, 2024. But if you don't live near our library or you're watching this later on our YouTube channel, don't worry, I'll tell you everything you need to purchase to make this craft yourself. What we're making today is this cute beaded jingle bell wind chime. Now it's up against the wall, so let me grab it, and you can hear. So you can imagine how cute this will be with the sun hitting the glass beads and the wind blowing the jingle bells, making the great chime. So now let me tell you what you need to make this project. Okay, so what's in the kit, or what you'll need to purchase if you don't have a kit, first of all is a 10-inch stick, fairly straight. We're going to use this to hang the wind chimes, the strands off of. There'll be a 30-inch piece of jute twine. That's going to be your hanging loop that's going to go over your branch or your hook when you're hanging outside. There's going to be a bag of different size beads. You will have a 42, I believe, wooden beads of various colors, about 120 smaller glass beads of different colors. You will also have in here 4 smaller jingle bells, might be gold, might be silver, and those will go about halfway down the strand, and then at the end of the strand will go these big jumbo jingle bells. These are about 1.5 inches across, and then you will have 4 strands of beading wire, and this is a 7-strand 0.38 millimeter beading wire. Now beading wire is interesting because it's made up of little tiny wires that are twisted together, and then it's coated in plastic so that it can be used and it won't rust or degrade, but it also makes it so that it won't break as easily. However, this is very thin, so it can actually be, this is only 7 strands. The ones that are this thin can actually be tied in knots and cut with scissors. I would not recommend using your good fabric scissors, but just a normal pair of scissors. So you will need a pair of scissors to cut this off to the right length when you're finished making your strands. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your 30 inches of jute twine, and you're going to tie it about 1 inch or so from the end of each end to form the hanging loop. And I've got one that I already did, and then it'll be like this. So this will be your hanging strand, and this will be where you tie your beaded strands with the jingle bells off of. So we'll set that aside for right now, and I am going to bring over a tray that I have. I suggest working on a tray, and I'm sorry if some of the jingle bells go off during the video. That's the thing about wind chimes and bells. They're noisy. They're designed to be noisy. So I like to use, this is the lid from a plastic tub, but it has this nice little ridge that is nice to work on. You can use like a baking cookie sheet or something like that, something so your beads don't run away. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to tie these large bells on the end of the strand. So how these work is the little back piece here, see if you can see that, is in a little divot so that you can slide the wire right in that divot and straight out the other side. Then you're going to tie this in a knot, And you've got a few extra inches to play with, so don't worry about making it too short. And I'm going to do this twice around. I'm going to tie a knot, and then I'm going to do another one just to make sure that it stays nice and the knot doesn't come undone. Then I'm going to cut off the extra little tail. You don't want to cut it too close down to the knot, but just leave, I like to leave about a ½ inch. Okay, so I have that hanging there. So I'm going to do that to each of my 4 strands. Alrighty, I've got all 4 tied on now. So what I'm going to do is, I could do the math and figure out exactly how many beads I have and divide it by 4 and say that's the perfect amount for each strand, but that's too much math. So I'm going to set the small jingle bells aside for right now, and the way I'm going to make sure that each one is the right length is I'm only going to work a few inches at a time. I'm going to do a few inches on one, then go to the next and do a few inches on the next one, a few inches on the next one, and so that I'm rotating around through the different strands, keeping them each about the same length to make sure I have an equal amount. The pattern I like to use, because I have roughly 3 times as many small beads as I do large. So I like to do 3 small beads in between each large wooden bead. But I also like to stagger the starting. I like to stagger the levels. So on this one, I'm going to start out with 1 small bead and then go into my pattern of large, 3 small, large, 3 small. This one I'm going to start out with 2 small beads. This one I'm going to start out with 3 small beads. And this one I'm going to start out with 4 small beads. And what that does is when I get through, that makes the big beads at the different levels. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do, on the first one, 1 small bead and a big bead. Second one, I'm going to do 2 small beads and a big bead. Next one, I'm going to do 3 small beads, and I'm just randomly grabbing them so that I get a good mix of colors. You're welcome to do a pattern if you'd like. And then on the 4th one, whoops, on the 4th one I'm going to do 4 small beads and a large bead. Now this is the only time I'm going to do 4 small beads in a row. The rest of it I'm going to do 3 at a time. Okay, so that's my starting points. 1 small, large, 2 small, large, 3 small, large, 4 small, large. Now from here on I'm just going to do a pattern of 3 smalls and a large, 3 smalls and a large, just kind of alternating colors. Okay, so, and also just to let you know, you should have twice as many pink beads as you do anything else. So if you're trying to make a pattern, you can figure that into it. There's 6 of each of the different colored large beads, but you'll have 12 of the pink ones. And you should have 5 different colors of the small beads, just to let you know. So I'm going to go through one by one, and I'm going to do about 5 inches or so. And then I'm going to put on the jingle bells, and 5 inches jingle bell, 5 inches jingle bell for each one of these strands at the bottom. And then I'm just going to do a few inches at a time, working in my pattern. And I'll check in with you as I go along and show you how it's progressing. see how far that is. Okay, that's about right. So now we're going to thread on a small jingle bell. And then I'm going to go to the next strand, and I'm going to do about that same amount. And I like to line these up here in a row so that as I work along, I can slide this up and I can compare lengths to make sure I'm keeping them all even. I'll do a few more. I'll show you when I'm about halfway through. I'll do a few more, and then I'll show you toward the end. Okay, so I've got them all about 5.5 to 6 inches up, and I've got the small jingle bells on. Now I'm just going to continue on a few inches at a time on the strands as I did before, just about that much at a time. I like continuing on the 3 and 1, 3 and 1 pattern from wherever I left off. That way when I get all the beads used up, I can make sure that all the strands are the same. I'll see you back when I've gotten to that point. Okay, so I've gotten to the point where I have 10 wooden beads on each strand. Now I'm going to use the remainder beads to just even up the top. So remember, I started out with 1 here, 2 here, 3 here, 4 here. So I'm just going to add 1 on this one, 2 on this one, 3 on this one, and 4 on this one to make the bottom and top even. Okay, so that way I know that the bottom and the top even out. Now I have a few extra leftover beads, so I'm just going to save these. You are welcome to try and figure out a way to get them to stay even with adding those, but you don't need to. I'm just going to set these aside and save them. Now it is time to tie them onto here. So you have 4 strands, and you're going to tie them evenly spaced in between here, so about 1.5 inches apart is where you should tie them. So I'm going to start, I'm going to set those over there, and I'm going to start over here. I'm going to make sure, now you can hang this up and try and tie it from a hook, or you can lay it down and tie it. Whichever one you do, you're going to want to make sure that there's no like space in the middle here in your strand. So slide your beads down to make sure all of the wire is taken up. So I'm going to wrap this around once, and I am going to make sure I have about 1/4 inch there to tie the knot. You don't want to make, it's going to want to wrap under that bottom bead. Don't let it do that. I like to hold it with one hand and pull this around with the other so that it doesn't slide out of place. Bring it through just like I was tying knots, but make sure not to let the knot go below the bead. And I'm going to tie a couple more knots around. Now, I don't want to cut this too tight because that knot's, or too close to the knot, because that knot's going to be under a lot of pressure from the weight of the beads. So I want to leave a longer tail, but I don't want it flipping up there. So I can actually thread this down, back down through some of the beads, as many as I can. Okay, so I've threaded it back down through the beads. And now I can just cut that off. So the tail is hidden, but it gives it a little extra security so that the knot won't come as undone as easily. So I'm going to do this for the same thing for all 4 of these bead strands. Now you're probably not going to be able to get it all the way up because the beads tend to slide around while you're tying the thing, but as long as you've got maybe that much of the wire showing, that's perfectly fine. It's not going to affect the structural integrity. And this wire is so skinny that most people won't even see it very easily. Okay, so I have finished tying everything on. I finished tying everything on. Now I'm going to hang it up and show you what it looks like. So here's what it looks like when it's hanging. So it'll be hanging outdoors, and you can hear just how much noise that makes with the slightest little movement. So thank you for viewing another video from the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library. I'll see you next time. Bye.